I think my story started around grade 6. In a day, I would spend about 5 hours on the road. It was worth it to me. I wrote my Harvard application in like 1 week. It was incomplete. It had some spelling errors and whatnot. I didn't get in. I got waitlisted by TAPS, and I got into McGill, but then I didn't get good aid from McGill.
Now, looking back, would you say everything happens for a reason, or would you say you give meaning to what happens in your life?
Personally,
at the bridge, we care less about where someone has arrived and more about how they made sense of the journey to the destination. Now, this is space for a real conversation. Speak your mind, be authentic as you can, and share what this journey means to you and how you're able to make it to Princeton. Before I introduce you to our audience, I would like you to take this opportunity to introduce yourself in your own words. Who's Brian and why are you here today?
my name is Brian Nick Juma. I am a graduate of Fez International School, and I like to learn things. I like to tell people things, and I also like art and volleyball. I'm an intern at Stansav currently, which is a community-based organization which helps high school students secure admissions to top North American universities. I'm here because the bridge is also like supporting the same mission as Stansav and I.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and it's such an honor to have you with us, Brian. And just to give you a short glimpse of how I came across Brian, a short description of how amazing Brian is. I know Brian and I worked together to renovate a school in Msasani, and I remember you stood out to me the most because you used to stay in Kibaha, isn't it? Correct?
Yeah.
Which is outside the city, and you would commute, I think, an hour and a half or probably 2 hours every single day to come and renovate the school. And you did some great painting. You always went out of your way to serve the community, which stood out to me quite a lot 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I know getting to Princeton isn't easy. I know lots of people have tried and lots of people have failed, and you have tried and you have made it, but I'm sure there's so much work that went in to make this successful. Before we start talking about Princeton, I wanted you to take the opportunity to define success in your own words, and what did you have to learn about yourself to believe you deserved it?
To me, success is just the ability to enact your full potential, just to see how far up you can reach and how far you can go. But also, I would like success to also come with like impact to yourself or those around you in whatever sense, financially, emotionally, socially. Just the ability to contribute to society and make it a better place. What I had to learn about myself to know that success is, like I deserve success, is I used to be like very antisocial, but then I realized that people care about me, especially my mom. The first time I became top 3 in class, from then on it was like, okay, Brian has the chance to like do this, so I'm just gonna like work my best to make sure Brian has the like ability to always stay on top. And so are my friends, my teachers, and everyone's been supportive of the journey up until now, and that's why I think like eventually it would have come because I was not alone.
That's powerful, knowing that you have a great support system and you're standing on shoulders of giants who very much care about you and keep pushing you. Now, talking about the journey itself, where did your story start?
I think my story started in around grade 6, which was 2016. It was on a newspaper or on TV. This one student from Feza Boys called Alfred Shauri became the first in the nation, and at that same time I had a friend who was doing an interview at Feza Boys, and my mom, I was in grade 6, so I couldn't do an interview for Feza Boys, but my mom registered me for the interview without telling me. Like she just wanted to see like how far back I am in case I wanted to go to FESA Boys the next year. So I passed the interview and I went to the oral interview, and when the headmaster knew that I was not a grade 7 student, they were like, okay, I guess you have to try again next year. But on that same day of the interview, they were doing another competition which was called Genius Cup, and there were like so many other schools from Dar es Salaam, and I was like, why is my school was called Tusiime. It was like top 10 in the country, but then they were not participating in this competition. I was like, turns out like the school, because the school is focusing on national performance, it used to like reject all offers of outside competition. So there's a guy who is the first in the nation at FESA Boys. I went to FESA Boys, I liked the campus. I saw they have the Genius Cup math competition, and I can't participate in it because if you do well in Genius Cup, you can get a scholarship to FESA Boys, because it was also like the most expensive nectar school. So I asked my parents to switch me to FESA Primary, which does participate in the Genius Cup. And now the jump was significant because there was like an increase in school fee, and also FESA Primary was not like academically competitive at all. So like I feared maybe my mom would say, if you go there, you just start failing because you can see the students are not doing well. But I don't know how they had this discussion, but they agreed. So they moved me and my brother to FESA Primary. I did Genius Cup regional rounds. I was the first one. I did Genius Cup national rounds. I was also the first one. I did inter-primary. I was also the first one. And I was also like valedictorian of my class. So I got automatic entry to FESA Boys. And when I was at FESA Boys, I just knew I just knew that I wanted to study like abroad. I didn't have a plan for which country. And then when I was in Form 3, my FESA Boys has a class brother system. So like people from high school they come and study with people from secondary school. And my brother was the 9th in the nation. He was top 10 in the nation in his Form 6 exams. And he got into Harvard. And then I was like, this guy is going to like the best school in the world and is not paying for anything. And that's when I think my journey to like start thinking about these opportunities started. And then I just started learning of how many FESA Boys students have gotten into these schools. So the Alfred Shauri guy got into Yale and NYU, and he went to NYU. We had Fuad Thabit who went to NYU. Then there are people in the 2 classes above me. That was like Collins and Isaiah who went to Harvard in Columbia, and Mvano who also went to NYU. And I was like, yeah, so this is possible. Like my brother's case was not like one in a million. It seems that FESA Boys students, at first I just thought it was like FESA Boys students have an aptitude to get into these schools. And then I also learned about Paul, who was not a FESA Boys student, but he also got into NYU. And then so at that point, you can see I'm mentioning so much NYU. My dream school was NYU. It had a major this was after Form 4. It had a major, which I think it's the only school which teaches that major. It's called Integrated Media Design. Yeah, I just wanted to go to NYU. And then I remember in that summer, you guys hosted like a college talk. There was Karine Dixon. There was a guy from UFT. I don't remember his name. There was Paul, Isaiah. And then I learned about like the college application process, essays, SAT scores, all the other kids, even kids from government schools who go to like Dartmouth and schools like that. And then so basically I decided to start like preparing myself for this kind of application. So first I knew that I wanted to go to an international school because like it would be easier for me to like do extracurricular activity when I'm at an international school. I thought FIS was like the best one for me because I didn't want to study outside Dar es Salaam, and all the people who got into NYU went to FIS at the time that I knew of, and they also studied in FESA Boys. That was like Mvano, Fuad Thabit, and I was like, yeah, it seems maybe if I follow the trend, I might also end up in NYU. And I also didn't want to take a gap year, and everyone I knew who did not take a gap year also like went to FIS. So I signed up for FIS, which is FESA International School. It's the Cambridge part of FESA. And I decided to also take 4 subjects because my high school counselor was like, if you take 4 subjects, it will like show like you have like a capacity to handle a lot of academic load. So yeah, I took 4 subjects. I played volleyball. I became the volleyball captain. I was in the art club. I've been in the art club for so long, since FESA Boys, and I was in the media team for FESA International. Like, all these things were just for like specifically for my NYU application and that major, because the major is for like graphic technology. But then after that, I also prepared. When I got good grades in Form 5, my AS level grades, I got flat A's. I was like, okay, then now I have the grades to apply. I think I have the extracurricular profile to apply. I need an SAT score, and I also need essays. At the same point, I was looking for UK universities. I was specifically looking for Oxford and Imperial College London. So during my first term of year 13, my A levels, I studied for the SAT. And here's like where it comes in the support system, because I didn't have time to study for the SAT given the amount of extracurriculars I had, and my teachers would let me study for my SAT in their class, like while they're teaching. So like maybe my teacher is teaching math, I'll be doing SAT math instead of the math he's teaching. Or like for Oxford, I had to do PAT, which is like a physics assessment test. My physics teacher would let me do PAT questions in class instead of listening to him. And yeah, so the PAT one did not work out. I remember doing the Oxford exam. It was really tough, and it turns out there were questions that the teacher was teaching, so maybe I should have listened when he was teaching. But the SAT worked out. I did 2 SATs. The first one I did very well on math. I got a perfect score on math, but a very bad score in English. And then I retook it and I got a really good score in English. So now I had a super score of 1570. Before I retook the second SAT, I had a 1480. And my school counselor told me, okay, since you have a 1480, I know you wanted to apply to like NYU or MIT, but I know someone who got into Harvard with a 1480 or 1470. Why don't you just try and apply to Harvard, because it's not binding. So yeah, I wrote my Harvard application in like 1 week. It was incomplete. It had some spelling errors and whatnot. And then I got deferred. I didn't get rejected, which was a boost. I didn't know that Harvard maybe has a habit of deferring people. I just thought like, wow, my application, which was like not good at all, got deferred. So I have the opportunity to like, that means if I lock in, I can get into a good school, into other good schools. So after I got my new SAT score, I applied to, I withdrew my Imperial College London. So going into the second round of applications, because I applied for Harvard early, going to the second round of application, I decided to apply to 7 schools. I also thought, given that I might not be able to afford Imperial College London because I didn't have a Beacon scholarship and my school is not a Beacon school, I decided to drop that application. So I went for Stanford, MIT, Columbia. I had McGill in Canada, and I also applied to Tufts University. So I left out some schools because I had a friend, David. He was at Tansal, and he was like, you can't really be sure you're gonna get into another school. So I would like recommend you leave some schools out in case you do have to take a gap year, because reapplying to the same school can be like hectic, or like it can be hard. So I decided to leave out the schools with the long essays, which were Princeton and Yale, which had like 500 and 400 word essays, and I decided to leave them out, and I applied to those schools. Yeah, I didn't get in. I got waitlisted by Tufts, and I got into McGill, but then I didn't get good aid from McGill. I was supposed to pay 120 for my first year, and I was like, yeah, let me just try to take a gap year. So I applied to TANSAF while I was still on the TAF's waitlist, and thankfully I got into TANSAF because in the early round, because it had an SAT requirement of 1450. When I got into TANSAF for the early round, I basically started like training or like shadowing David, who was an intern at TANSAF, and he was like the tutoring coordinator. So I started shadowing him in order to like learn how to like become a tutoring intern and teach SAT, because I already had a good SAT score, and basically IELTS and other standardized exams. Going there, I'm waiting for my TAF's decisions. They don't work out. So now I'm basically now thinking about a school to apply to. And as I said in the beginning, I just like learning. So I thought there was the option of Cornell and there was the option of Princeton, because I wanted to take engineering at the end of the day. And my counselor told me to choose Princeton as my early school. He thought my profile looked like would work for Princeton, and so I took his advice. And the more like when you're applying, you're researching the school, and you just kind of like look at the Princeton I'm looking at the Princeton website, and I even mentioned this in my Princeton interview that I liked their website and the way they present the information. And I was like, wow, Princeton is a really like great school, and the research heavy focus is also like something I would be really interested in. So yeah, while I was applying to Princeton, I also decided to like rethink my major and what kind of major I wanted to take. At first, with the integrated media design, it was because I was like frustrated with how like art is in Tanzanian films. The technology we have to produce movies and shows is just not that good, or video games or animated shows. It's not that good. That's why I wanted to take that. Being a dancer, thinking about all the impact that I see from previous TANSAF students and what they're studying, and like what motivated them to choose their majors. Like I did reconsider my major, and I decided to go with civil engineering. I was reflecting on something that happened in my family a long time ago, and I was looking through the Princeton website, and I can see like the civil engineering professors are working on things that I have been interested in like structural development, but I just put it aside because I thought like making movies was more fun. So I decided to apply for civil engineering. I wrote my application for early. There was an internet power cut during the deadline, but I was lucky enough to be in a place which had like private internet. It was a university. I was teaching somewhere under TANSAF, and yeah, so I managed to send my application with the private internet of that place. And yeah, I got my interview a few, like 5 weeks later. I got my interview. I loved my interviewer. She was great, but she was like Princeton class of 1989. Her Princeton time was different from mine, and we had a talk about that. They didn't have websites. They only had like bulletin boards. So she told me, if you do get into Princeton, just sign up for anything, because she only knew her building. She only knew her building that she studied in, and some few other places. She didn't get to explore Princeton to the fullest. So yeah, she said, yeah, just take part of the opportunities. We had a talk about my favorite book, about why I want to choose my major, and why I wanted to be at Princeton. We also talked about a research project I did under TANSAF with the cohort, partly when I was in FIS and partly when I was at TANSAF, because I've known TANSAF for a long time. And yeah. So with that, that's kind of how I got into Princeton. on, I think it was 12th December last year. I got my decision, and yeah, I was happy that the journey is finally over, and like I can look forward to other things.
Your journey is quite inspiring because there's so many ups and downs, there's so many opportunities you went for, and some did work, some didn't to a certain degree. Everything you did and everyone you came across led you to this space, Princeton, where you're at the moment. Now, looking back on your journey, would you say everything happens for a reason, or would you say you give meaning to what happens in your life?
Personally, I don't think that everything happens for a reason. I do have kind of a nihilistic approach to stuff. Not so much. I do think like not everything happens for a reason, but I do think about how I managed to get here. Remember, I told my interviewer, she asked me like, I need a book to add to my reading list. So can you like recommend me a book? And I was like, yeah, like you should read Outliers. You know, I read that book in Form 2, and it's kind of like it's the book that like makes me understand my journey. Like there's so many points that I could not have controlled. Like it just happened, and it slingshotted me into this direction. The fact that I knew someone who got into Harvard, or like I knew so many people at TANSAF, like they just happened to study in the same school as me. Or even like the fact that I learned about Alfred Shauri. My mom decided to sign me up for the Feza Boys interview. Maybe I would have gone to Marian, or I would have gone to like Kemebos or some other school. Yeah, I do give meaning when it happens, but at that point in time, I'm like, random chance.
Well, that's Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, isn't it? It's an amazing book. And quick question, just to dive away. If you could write a book, what would your book be about?
Okay, so my favorite type of media to consume is stuff like Outliers, or I don't know if you know Vsauce, or in the basketball space there is Jimmy High Roller. So these people, they just show you through data or through like records that you can't really see that this is how things like happen. Like they can connect so many different dots. Like in Outliers, the hockey players' birthdays and like being born in the beginning of the year improves your chances of being a hockey player, right? Bill Gates got into computer science because his high school was like one of the only schools in America which had a computer, you know, stuff like that. So I would write a book about something like that, but I don't know on what topic is what. Maybe science, because Vsauce does not have a book, but his videos are always in that kind of like spectrum. So I would write a book like that. Yeah, just connecting like finding some kind of data which can link to something in a very separate field that you wouldn't like connect easily.
Yeah, I think that would be an amazing book, to be honest. And hopefully 10 years down the line, when you do publish such a book, we will have you on the bridge again talking about your book. Now, I know you mentioned something to do with connecting the dots and doing the work behind closed doors, the unseen work, as you said. What's part of your preparation in this journey that wouldn't be able to be quantified or wouldn't be able to be seen in your CV or your resume? In the sense that what work went behind the closed doors that you think mattered a lot, especially in this journey, that you think more people should be aware of or should utilize too?
Okay, so I would first begin with like in this application process, one of the pivotal things, especially for like highly selective schools like Harvard or Princeton, Stanford, MIT, is the SAT score itself. And I know as Tanzanians, we struggle a lot because I teach SAT, so like I know we struggle a lot to get like a 1500 plus SAT score. And I've known people who've taken 6 SATs and haven't gotten that, even as a super score. And all of the people that I know who do reach there, like not all, like most of them that I know who do reach there, they do have a certain I don't know, aptitude or ability to like use English well, but to use English in more than the academic like nectar or school English. So these are people who like read a lot of books. I know some who don't read, like Harris. Harris doesn't read, but he watches a lot of like academic like TV shows, maybe like The Big Bang Theory. I know he watches a lot of YouTube, a lot of debates. He's a national debater. So I personally, my English was built up through like science YouTube. So I've been watching science YouTube since I was in like maybe 5th grade. Like yeah, I've been watching a lot of YouTube, and I feel like YouTube is my biggest addiction. I just know, like, when I read an SAT question, I can imagine, even if I don't know that topic, I can just like, I've heard about this thing, because most SAT questions are either about history, humanities, or science based. Even though they're English questions, they talk about those topics, and just the ability to know what Hannibal is, who Hannibal was, some guy who wanted to take over Italy, or like what this DNA gene does help you like not get lost in the question, and just like extract the information, get the answer, move on to the next question. So all of my friends, especially at Tansaf, who have gotten an SAT score, they are good at English, or they do consume a lot of English media, and very intentionally. So they either read books or they watch videos on YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah, so I would say like if there is someone who wants to like prepare for the SAT very well, to like be able to do it maybe in 3 tries or something like that, I would say start your English, like your ability to use English early, because the SAT is not made for like Africans, it's made for Americans, so it's made to their English standard. So you should be able to like know like the figures of speech, the idioms, the whatever proverbs, or like whatever words they use to mean different things. Maybe salary can be the same as compensation, or reservations can mean like doubts and stuff like that. Yeah, just the ability to know how words are used, how the English language is used by like native speakers is helpful. That's for the SAT. And apart from that is like to do work that is meaningful in your extracurriculars, and work that you can also like appreciate yourself to do, because that way you can even like when you're writing about it, you can remember how that work affected you when you're writing about it in your essays. And my personal statement was like half of it was Golden Summer. So as Malcolm said, I lived in Kibaha, which is like 2 hours away from where we did our Golden Summer project at Muimbili and Musasani. And I was on holiday. I wanted to draw, but I was in Kibaha. It was like, it's lonely. There's no one there. There are no other kids around to talk to or anything. The only thing you can do is like, we had farms, so we can like go to like uproot cassava, harvest maize, yeah, feed chicken or something. So yeah, I decided, I talked to my friend Brighton, and he was like, you can come to Golden Summer. I know you're good at drawings. We have art projects we're doing. Yeah, so I really loved going to Golden Summer, even though in a day I would spend about 5 hours on the road. It was worth it to me. I didn't really think about the commute that much, because like I like drawing, and I'm helping kids like be happier. I remember for the school library, it was Kiswahili themed, which was the basis of my application. We do a lot of Swahili art, the tinga tinga, the Ubongo kids. Yeah, it was meaningful. It was meaningful work to me, and most of my activities are things which I do really like. So like the media team, I wanted to take integrated media design. So like editing videos, recording videos, that's just a fun time for me. Volleyball, I really love this volleyball anime. So it was great to play volleyball. I had another organization called Project Dream, which was about like helping kids with educational stuff, like navigating school. That was also great, because I like teaching people stuff. I like knowing things, but I don't like keeping it to myself. Like tell people so that people can know. that these things exist. So yeah, it's to have, when you have a good time doing your activities, you perform them better, but you also like can write about them better because you remember what you did, and you remember it in great detail because you are having a good time there. And the last part is writing. For me, I already had all this extracurricular stuff and my SATs before that 6 university rejection round, and the problem I had was my writing. At first, I just did not know why an admission officer should know all these things about me, or like why it mattered in that sense. Like I didn't want my personal application to be personal, and I think that was a problem. That was a problem. I don't know who read my application, to be specific, but when I was at TANSAF, like I really decided to like push myself, and my friends also decided to push myself to like write things which I didn't want to write about, especially in my Y major essay. I switched my major because of when I started like reflecting on how some things affected me, and I did not want to write about that topic. But then I wrote the first draft, and my counselor was like, you don't need to rewrite this essay. I think it's like this is like okay. This essay is like good. And my counselor and I had issues in my writing because we were never like agreeing on the final draft. But that essay he did not have issues with it per se. Maybe like minor tweaks, but it was something that I never wanted to talk about. But then you can get personal in your essay. It's like it shows that you have an ability to look at something in retrospect and really think of how it built you. The same with my personal statement. My first personal statement was quite like generic, I would say, but then the one I wrote for Princeton, it was also better because it also starts with something that I didn't want to like talk about at all. I just didn't think this thing was as important as it is. Sometimes it's the things you think that should just be like kept aside are the things which like actually made you like who you are. I think all my essays show a great deal of vulnerability, I would say, because it's not how I look like outward. I look like a guy with no issues, I would say, but my essays reflected a different angle there. Yeah. So when you're writing, rather than your skill of writing, especially for like us who are not like native English speakers, we don't write like essays like this. Your topic of writing might be the thing that will carry you. And I know certainly for me it was my topic of writing because the things I decided to write before were just not they were not that important. And I think the admissions officers could see like this guy's just, he thinks he has like he has straight A's, he has a 1570, he has all these extracurriculars, he can just write about anything and his stats will get in. But your story matters, I would say.
That's powerful, and it's quite important to make sure that you're honest to yourself. It's you being you, and they're able to see who you are as a person. Now, building on that, I know you mentioned, and I know Princeton is quite famous they're famous for the principle, I think, or the motto, service to humanity. And the question that I had for you was that how were you able to translate your life in Tanzania or your experience in order to resonate with the admission officers? What are the questions you asked yourself? How were you able to persevere through that mental, is it writing block? Yeah, how did you go about it, if you to share that?
Princeton's application is funny in a way that it does not have like a why Princeton essay, right? It does have a community service essay, but even in its why majors and all the other essays, they do not have like a why Princeton essay. And when I was writing my application, I didn't really think about that motto. I thought about it in the what community service like have you done, which is meaningful. But it did occur to me as I was writing my other essays that I do just like to I just do like to help others, like make others' lives a bit easier, and I do that a lot. Even like at TANSAF, when I came as tutoring coordinator, we had like a system of recording diagnostic test scores and whatnot. And it was hard to do. It required a lot of steps. So I I learned how to use like Excel formulas, some Excel codes, and I decided to like automate the system. So like that way I don't have to be the only one who's recording this course or doing this analysis. So like another intern who doesn't do my job can just open the Excel, fill in some numbers, and the other things generate themselves. When I was in my fun holiday with the Golden Summer project, I was like, I think, making kids who like have cancer just have like a nice playroom, see some fun pictures on the wall, just brighten their day a little bit can be helpful. And with a lot of the projects I did was always like voluntarily, because for the media team it was just like the FESA page is like bland, there's nothing to do, like we seem like we're just like an academic school. Let's just make a media team which like showcases other fun things. I mean, a media team which showcases other fun things about FESA International. And I was like, okay, I'll join the team, I'll edit the videos. And yeah, I was just like, it was out of my free time. Even for volleyball, you see like maybe volleyball, not a lot of people are playing, so you just like you're just rallying people up to like come play, because volleyball is like a team sport, so you don't need to be extremely good to like play. And yeah, in my essays I just try to like really showcase that. Most of my essays did have a second person. They had a second person who either helped me realize something, or I was helping them, or we were like helping each other. Princeton has like a 500-word essay about listening to other people, sharing diverse perspectives and whatnot. Basically, I talked about because I was like good at like stuff. I just never thought like there was a time I'd be bad. And when I went to FIS, turns out international school kids, they draw better than like they're better at drawing. And yeah, that kind of shattered me for a bit. But then one of my friends helped me like realize that like it's okay. People do improve, and you can work together to like improve and push your drawing skills up, your art skills in general. I think my art like grew a lot from my art teacher, from my friends in the art club, and yeah, things like that. The service part was like I was servicing people were servicing me, and I was realizing how their service is affecting my life. Even in my personal statement, I talked about my mom a bit. Yeah. And in the actual service essay, I just talked about my internship at TANSAF and all this stuff about making the automated diagnostic reports, and basically suggesting some readers like maybe outliers. We had like Plato's Republic, stuff like that, which like help people like get better at like their English aptitude for the SAT. Yeah, so I did try to show a lot of service in my work.
Service, I think, as you said, we're all here to serve each other, and you're doing such a great job. So well done on that. Conscious of time, if you had to build a roadmap for our listeners today, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them, in the sense that if you break them down into three, whereby someone who has 3 years until they apply, someone who has 1 year, maybe they're taking a gap year, and someone who is applying maybe in 3 months, what advice would you provide for each of these three groups?
Okay. For example, first, someone who was like maybe is in Form 1, Form 2, because the high school journey kind of starts 4 years before, so it starts in Form 3 for like these applications. If you're in Form 1, Form 2, it's good to like keep your mind open. As I said, like I had thoughts of where I was gonna go. It started maybe like it was China or Malaysia, and then it was NYU, and then now it's like I was locked in onto like Princeton. It's also like good to start exploring what you actually like, so that in high school you can just like stick to it and show that commitment to a certain activity, because showing a high level of commitment is always helpful for the admissions officers to know that you are able to stick to something, especially when you're in a rigorous academic environment and you might like drop out, or you might start like quitting stuff just because you think they're hard and stuff like that. So like, for example, in the case of art, I've been in the art club since Form 1 all the way to Form 6, and stuff like that. You should start like also learning just English, I would say. I keep saying this about English because it is like a real problem. And I've seen these days the standards for the SAT are really high. So like if you're looking, if one of your options is an American school, the SAT is really important, and having a good English score would highly be beneficial to you. So start by like getting into whatever form you would enjoy of English. Just tap into that. So for me, it was science and history YouTube, just like informational YouTube, just someone yapping to me about their favorite topic, like nerds on the internet, and blogs and stuff like that. For other people, it's reading fiction. For other people, it's reading non-fiction. For other people, their TikTok algorithm is about people talking about geopolitics or stuff or something like that. Just like be well informed, so that any SAT question can be like, you can easily understand it and have a good control of English for that matter too. Yeah, and also say like just stick to like the things you love, and if you do love something, try to do that thing in a way that impacts people. So like I like to draw, but then for me drawing was just like, at first it was like just a personal thing, and then finally I managed to like do some paintings for Golden Summer. So like I could translate that into something which is helpful. I liked like just playing with video editors and stuff, and I managed to translate that into the media team at school, which also like got me a recommendation letter from my media team coordinator. Yeah, so stuff like that, just being able to translate what you love into something that impacts people, but also that you enjoy. And the last thing I would say, keep your grades up, because you're still in school. Form 3 to Form 6 grades are your most important grades. Above all, these schools are schools, so they do want to see that you're like you can handle a good amount of academic load or capacity at their school. Yeah, so that's what I would say. And for someone who's maybe someone who's finished Form 4, they finish Form 4, they have a 1.7, 1.8, and they still want to like be able to go to a top school. Then now maybe you can narrow down more countries that you would want to. It's not necessarily that it has to be America. As long as you are an impactful person, you can study anywhere and make a change. Even if you study like at Mohas, like as long as you're passionate about what you do, you can make a good impact. So then I would still suggest in A-level, keep your grades up, because those are like the grades towards your university, so those need to be good. If you can, try to find a scholarship to an international school. If you can't afford it, maybe go to an international school, just to get like the room to explore more activities and like have a better chance at having the extracurriculars required to apply, having the amount of impact. And just like I find international schools to be more supportive of this kind of journey, because they have like students who've gone to those schools, so like they know that it is possible. I think if you're going to a school like maybe like any nectar school, even if you're doing great, your teachers are still thinking of, will you do great in the next exam? They don't really care about where you're gonna go to university. What they care is that the school is producing that like academic output. But international schools, they do care about like where you go. I would also say like FESA schools in general. I have eternal thanks to FESA schools for all the opportunities I've ever gotten. And I would say start actively prepping for the SAT. I know sometimes it takes a lot of tries to get your SAT score, and once you start in the Form 4 holiday, you have so much time. And SAT prep is like free. It's online. You can self-teach yourself. You can find people who can teach you. If you're in Tanzania, we do offer SAT classes. If you're somewhere remote in Tanzania, SAT has its own course, official course. You can learn through that, do a lot of practice tests, maybe sign up for an official SAT, because I think they are valid for 2 years. So if you do one, you might be able to still use it for your application if you do get a good score. Yeah, and yeah, I would say that's what I would say to someone who's like in the Form 4 holiday. And start thinking about like your major and what you want to take in university, and how what influenced you to reach that point? Because I know for the US, that's maybe just one essay, but for the UK, it's kind of the whole essay. It's why you want to study what you want to study. Yeah, and if you've finished Form 6 and you're looking to apply to a top school, I would say if you don't have an SAT score yet, the SAT score is very, very important. If you think you cannot get a good SAT score, you should consider test optional schools. The problem is that test optional schools are like narrowing down. Like I know of the top schools which are continuously offer aid. NYU and Columbia are the only ones left. Princeton is test optional, was test optional. The next cycle, they're not going to be test optional anymore. So you have to submit a standardized test. So it seems like most top schools are going back to using SATs as one of the application requirements. So it would be good to like prep for that. If you can't, you could also try a test optional school, because now we're actually writing essays. Try to have some people review your essays and like take those reviews into consideration. I remember when I was applying, David reviewed some of my essays the first round, and he was telling me about, you should try and write something more personal. This essay looks like it could be written by anyone else. And I was like, what is this guy telling me? I was like, I'll be fine. I've applied to many schools. Someone has to like accept me or something. But yeah, that was not the case. So like, take like essay review seriously. Ask someone who's, if you can talk to, there's so many Tanzanians who've gotten into top schools. Ask them for like essay advice if they're willing to help. And I know most of them might be busy, but there are some who like care about helping more Tanzanians reach that academic level. So yeah, that's about the whole process. Yeah.
How do you envision your time at Princeton, and what can we expect to see from you in the coming years?
So at Princeton, I applied for, my first option was civil engineering and architecture, and my second option was mechanical engineering and visual arts. There was no third option, which could be electrical engineering, but up until now I'm still sticking with civil engineering. I hope to like do research. I don't know if I want to be like an engineer or I just want to like be able to like produce papers or design, because I know Princeton is not like practical engineer. It's like more theoretical engineering, and most of the professors there, they do engineering research. So I'm excited to get into engineering research. I'm also excited to play some like competitive club volleyball. If all goes well, maybe I might be able to make it to the actual like Division 1 team. I don't know, but I also hope to play there. Yeah, most of the things I'm looking towards for Princeton is the research, and I wanna try out for volleyball and see how far I can get in that. Yeah, and also some study abroad programs. If I can study in other places, if I can take hold of that, it would be great.
I hope to see that you achieve the things that you have in mind for yourself. I'll be rooting for you, and we'll all be vouching for you. If you could go back in time to the 13-year-old you, what would you advise them?
I don't think I would say anything. I think 13-year-old me was okay. He was a nerd. I miss him. My question for the next person would be maybe how many drafts in general they wrote for the whole application. How many application drafts did they have? Because I feel like there must have been many. There must have been a lot if they got to where they got to.
Well, I'll keep that in mind. Ryan, thank you so much for your honesty. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us, because I know you've given me probably 2 hours of your time, which is very valuable. Keep going, keep shining, and yeah, can't wait to see all the great things you achieve.